fragment takes over. Is that how it is?
The God fragment injects divine perspective into the human instrument. It enables the soul carrier to become the soul's vision in service to First Source. In doing this, the human instrument is transformed.
I understand. I think I need some time to sort all this out. Thank you for sharing your perspective and helping me with my understanding.
You are very welcome.
Separate from the capabilities of First Source?
If you believe you are an ant, how do you behave differently than an eagle?
But an ant is not an eagle.
But the wholeness navigator is First Source. If the ant were an eagle, in every respect except form, but associated its capabilities with that of an ant, the eagle would slowly lose its ability to fly. Its entire physical body, mind, and emotional makeup would change. Its soul carrier would literally devolve.
Our bodies cause our souls to devolve?
No. Our sense of separation from our source vibration causes our human instrument to remain devolved. The devolution has already occurred. It is merely perpetuated.
Then the goal is to awaken this source vibration and begin to reassociate with its divinity. This is what causes the human instrument to evolve in the direction of the wholeness navigator.
If you are going to start a fire, what do you need?
Dry wood, kindling, and a lot of work generating sufficient heat to combust the kindling.
And what is the most critical of these?
I suppose the kindling.
Can you start a fire without any of the elements?
No.
Are you sure?
Well, I could start a fire with the kindling, but without the dry wood, it won't last very long.
Aren't they all critical then?
Yes.
And if I had all the critical components to start a fire, but had no experience, would I be able to produce fire?
Probably not.
I might not even know. If someone were to give me all of these items, that their purpose was to create a fire. Correct?
Correct.
So we can add experiential knowledge as a critical component.
Yes.
And what if I didn't see the need for a fire?
Okay, so you also need a reason or desire.
Yes. Desire and purpose are critical.
Okay, I agree we can add that to our expanding list.
And if we were outside and it was raining and our kindling became wet?
I understand. Conditions must be right.
So conditions are important also?
Yes, but where are you going with this? I don't understand how this applies to my question about what causes the wholeness navigator to evolve.
You simplified your question to the extreme. The equations of evolution are so complex that they're invisible to the mind of the human instrument. It is not merely the reassociation with the source vibration or God fragment that draws the wholeness navigator to its divinity and reasserts its capabilities as a replica of First Source. This equation carries thousands upon thousands of critical elements bundled in a coherent, carefully orchestrated path. I wanted you to remember this.
But isn't it necessary to simplify in order to approach the subject? How can anyone give all of these factors equal weight and still have an intelligent discussion?
That's my point. You cannot.
So we can't even discuss it?
No, not with any degree of accuracy. Evolutionary circuits are dependent on complex systems, and these systems are so vast and multifaceted that words, when applied to depict them, only serve to bring focus on one element, and this element is never, in itself, powerful enough to catalyze or mobilize the evolutionary path.
So what does?
If you had a magical friend that was infallible in her judgment, perfect in her decisions because she saw clear to the destination of First Source, and therefore knew how to travel the landscape to achieve her reunion with God, what would you do with this friend?
I'd listen to them. I'd ask them for directions and guidance. I'd follow as closely behind them as I could.
Even if they led you to a cliff and jumped off?
Well, if I really believed they had this infallible judgment as you put it, yes. Even if they jumped off a cliff. Somehow I trust that I would be okay if I followed them over.
What if they didn't know you were following, and they had capabilities that you did not? In this example, they could fly, but you could not.
I guess I would have made a terrible mistake in following them, and I die as a result.
So your friend's judgment, even though it was infallible for herself, led to your own destruction.
Yes,
So who then do you offer your trust to?
myself.
And why?
Because I know my own limitations.
So what do you think is the mobilizing factor for one's evolutionary path to wholeness and unity?
You mean if I could sum it up in a single concept? Despite the fact you showed me earlier that it couldn't be done,
You're learning very well.
it would be to trust myself,
What part of yourself?
the soul.
And not the carrier?
Okay, I would need to trust the whole of me.
Trust the parts in the whole. Trust the connection of these to first source. Trust the God fragment that orchestrates all of this complexity into coherent experience and knowledge that assures the recollection of your divinity. Trust the evolutionary process defined by first source. Trust each of these above the external voices that meet you, no matter how infallible they may appear to be. Trust your self-knowing and its ability to guide you in the ascending spiral of your journey.
Even though I am but a student,
Are we not all students?
but there are those who know more than me. I don't feel like I know that much to trust myself. How can I overcome this self-doubt?
It is not something to overcome. If it were, would you then require trust?
I suppose not.
When you grapple with the finer distinctions of a concept, you invariably come to a wall that defines the limits of your memory or experience. When you find this wall, there is nothing wrong with seeking help from others, but remember that you are the entity that is most aware of your own needs. The wall that you find may be precisely what you need at that time.
Then it seems that I need to become more aware of my self-interests and needs.
The needs that you have that fuel your evolution as a sovereign integral. If you are hungry, your stomach will remind you. If you are tired, you will yawn and your eyelids will become unbearably heavy. What is the equivalent for your evolution as a sovereign integral?
It's an interesting question. I don't know.
What causes you to search for your higher self?
I guess unanswered questions. Not knowing who I am, where I am going, or why I am here.
Really? Unanswered questions awaken you to your highest self-interests?
I can tell by your question that I answered wrong. What is it then?
It is inspiration. Inspiration from the spiritual masters who came before you. Inspiration from nature. Inspiration from art. But most importantly, it is the inspiration that enters from the realm of the wholeness navigator within you into your human instrument and then tirelessly kindles your desire to recollect the reality of the God fragment stored inside you.
How do I recognize this inspiration?
It is not important to recognize it. It only matters that you feel it and welcome its presence, because this is how you develop self-trust and self-knowing.
Are there techniques to accomplish this?
Of course,
What are they?
you haven't invented them yet.
I thought you might know some that you could share.
I know my own. I do not know yours.
They're different for everyone?
I don't know.
How did you create your own techniques?
If you want to establish a relationship with someone that you want to know, what are some of the things you do?
I might invite them for a conversation over tea, or possibly write them an introductory letter describing my wish to meet them.
And if they don't respond,
I will probably assume that they are too busy, or more likely, not interested in meeting me.
then this is a problem.
What?
The human instrument gives up too easy if it invites the wholeness navigator into its realm at all.
I think we're all sensitive to rejection.
Do you think it's possible to be rejected by the divine instruments of first source?
I never thought about it before. Maybe?
It is not. The divine instruments of first source are ever vigilant for sincere prayers, and never reject the offer to extend their presence within the human instrument of an entity that desires to ascend in consciousness. This is an immutable law of the universe.
Is there a better way to extend this invitation than simply asking in prayer?
It is not your words that will be heard. It is your feelings and the purity of their motivation. You could be drunk from wine and swearing in your loudest voice, but if your innermost feelings were pure, sincere, humble, and motivated by love, your invitation would be answered. In contrast, you could be meditating for days, striving to be of perfect character, and asking in the quietest whisper of a clear mind, but if you were tainted with the motivations of honor and pride, your invitation would most likely be declined.
Why would the wholeness navigator, or any divine instrument of first source, care?
Why do you care if the food you eat is served on a clean plate or a dirty floor?
I don't understand the comparison.
The human instrument is a vessel, or soul carrier. Upon your planet, It houses the pure and perfect instrument of first source, the Wholeness Navigator. If the human instrument is impure, with thoughts of materiality, motivations of self-aggrandizement, or actions of hatred, it makes the soul carrier less receptive to the vibrations of the Wholeness Navigator. In some cases, the Wholeness Navigator, if it enters into such a vessel and offers its capabilities, these very capabilities are corrupted for selfish purposes.
So the Wholeness Navigator does not want its capabilities to become contaminated by an impure soul carrier?
This is partially true, but it is more that the God fragment within you chooses to expose its energies to a human instrument that has invited it to share its vision and understanding. Once it is invited, it will monitor the response of the human instrument to its presence. If the invitations are repeatedly extended, the God fragment will continue to materialize as an infused, spirit-led consciousness that directs the human instrument in its earthly mission.
It sounds like the God fragment takes over. Is that how it is?
The God fragment injects divine perspective into the human instrument. It enables the soul carrier to become the soul's vision in service to First Source. In doing this, the human instrument is transformed.
I understand. I think I need some time to sort all this out. Thank you for sharing your perspective and helping me with my understanding.
You are very welcome.